Sponsors have been laid to rest. We're right back here. Well, I don't mean laid to rest. I don't think that's a good phraseology.
How ominous.
We have taken care of our sponsors for this morning's program. Put that in different phraseology.
Yeah.
And we appreciate their presence, by the way. They're very, very important.
I hope to
without
shout.
Without them, we're not coming here. We're talking about weather with our great meteorologist, Chris Miller. Chris, we were talking about balloons, your observation balloons that you release twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
The height, the altitude that they will reach, what would be the average altitude that they will reach before they?
Yeah, before they pop, they'll get up to about 100,000 feet. That's
Wow.
Pretty high up there. When you figure that, if you've been on a commercial airliner, those are right around, 30, 35, somewhere in there, 1,000 feet. The balloons are going up 3 times higher than that. So they're way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get nosebleeds up there?
There's
Weeds?
yeah.
Nosebleeds?
Nosebleeds. Oh, I thought you said, are there weeds up there? Not so much. They'd have to be real tall. I asked you off the air, how come poor Oklahoma's having such a bad time, and you used a brand new word for Bill and me.
Yeah, it's something called the dry line, which is, it's been there for a very long time. But what the dry line does for Oklahoma is it causes thunderstorms to just explode. And what the dry line is when they get west or southwest winds coming from Texas, New Mexico, eastern Colorado, that very dry area of our country east of the Rockies, that dry air starts to move into the middle part of Oklahoma, Kansas, and then it merges with the warm and moist air. And the thunderstorms just erupt like bombs going off. And there are times, they're very rare, but there are times when that dry line can get as far east as central Illinois. Mm-hmm. The last time that we really had the dry line approaching our area that I can recall was about 10 years ago. There was a tornado that went just north of Beeson. It came across northern Logan County here. A lot of people saw it in affected areas just outside of Lawndale and over north of Beeson, and then went into Clinton. That was a dry line type storm. And then the big outbreak that really affected areas from Springfield to Decatur to Champaign back in 1996, April 19th, 96. That was a classic dry line situation. Mm-hmm. And the types of storms you get when that comes through, they're going to have tornadoes with them.
It's just Katie bar the door.
It really is, yeah.
All of us have seen some spectacular lightning displays on our television sets. So let's address the lightning factor just a minute.
Sure.
What sets that up and what creates it? Are the things that you can tell us about that?
Sure. When it comes to lightning, what happens is you get the ice that's up in the storm. It's hard to imagine that when thunderstorms are coming through and you see the clouds way high up, mm-hmm. that it's very cold up there. In fact, those cloud temperatures are 40, 50 below zero, and sometimes even a little bit colder than that. And you'll get ice. You get ice crystals that are up in those clouds way high up. Well, they start to fall out like snow would fall. Uh-huh. And as they fall through the cloud, you get so many of them that there's friction that starts to develop because they're bumping into each other as they're falling, and there's might be even hailstones, little balls of ice up there. And as all this is occurring, you're getting electrical charges that start building up in the bottom of the cloud. And when that happens, it's usually the opposite charge as to what our Earth, what our ground is. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is the difference in those two charges just becomes so great that you get a spark. And that spark is a lightning bolt. Mm-hmm. The lightning bolt itself really actually is pretty small. From people that have researched these, they found that they're really only about 1 inch across on average. They look much bigger because they happen so quickly. When we see a lightning bolt in the distance, oh, look, lightning just struck the ground out in the distance. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing is that electricity that has flowed through there has flowed several hundred times back and forth through that lightning channel before our eyes can even see it. It happened so quickly. Mm-hmm. And that lightning bolt, then by the time we see it, it looks like it's flashing. because our eyes are just seeing the light from that, from the spark, and it's difficult for us to say, oh, wow, that really looks big, but they're actually pretty small. The air within that little 1-inch channel can heat up to tens of thousands of degrees. It's extremely hot. That's why lightning can start fires, like what we just saw over a few days ago downtown.
More's the pity.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we do see a lot of lightning fires across the country. A lot of damage is done by lightning, hitting buildings, trees, sending surges through electrical lines, which can not only start fires, but if it doesn't start a fire, it can ruin your television or your computers or whatever electric equipment you have, and do quite a bit of damage. Every year I get stories of, especially down in southern Illinois, where they've got the oil tankers down there, of the small oil fields having explosions because of getting hit by lightning, or water treatment plants all around central Illinois at times, if they get hit by lightning, can damage their water treatment, the pumps and things that run the water treatment plant. And then, of course, what we're seeing out in the western U.S. Is the forest fires.
Terrible forest fires.
A lot of forest fires are started by lightning. And you say, well, they're in a drought. Well, what happens in the west is they can still get the thunderstorms that develop, but they get sometimes what's called dry thunderstorms, where either very little rain falls, or it's so dry between the bottom of the cloud and the ground, the rain that falls through evaporates before it hits the ground. And up in the cloud, you're still getting lightning, and that lightning can hit and cause trees to go up in flames, which are already dry because of the extreme drought they have. So, yeah, lightning can be extremely devastating.
Judith, I wish I had him as my instructor when I took Meteorology 101. That's all I can remember so far now after these many years after is the Beaufort scale and cumulus nimbus and so forth. But, case in point, the enthusiasm that Chris has for his job and the way he articulates his profession, that's kind of like a good professor in any class. Boy, they kind of pep up and pay attention.
Right.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. That's, and that's something that I've been passionate about weather my whole life, ever since I was a little kid. And I've wanted to learn more and more about it as far as, well, why?
Yeah.
Why did this happen? Why? In fact, we're still learning about that. You asked about some of the people we have at our office and what we do out there. I mean, besides weather forecasting and warning people about the bad storms, we're doing research. We research storms. We'll look at a storm and say, okay, what happened here? Why did this storm do this? We had the big snowstorm. Let's say, our forecast didn't turn out so well for that. We want to know why. We don't just sit there and go, oh, well, whatever, we missed that forecast.
Another mistake.
Yeah, another one, who cares, No, but we want to know why. What happened so that doesn't happen again. And we're always doing that. In fact, we have a person at our office. He's our science officer. He puts us through our paces. We do training. We have required training that we have to do. It's like continuing education that teachers and doctors and nurses have to go through.
Right.
Other professions need continuing education. We do the same thing. We have required training we go through. There's new technologies out there. There's new methods. There's things that we're still learning about the weather as to why things are occurring. And I guess it's always just that asking the question why, and then trying to come up, okay, why, and then researching the answer. I like to do that. I like to talk about the weather, and I like to see if I can, educate people about their questions, because a lot of times people will say, why is this, or why is that, or why did we get this weather, or why didn't that forecast turn out so well, or that type of thing. And
does our office send representatives such as you, and hopefully would be you, into our grade school, elementary school system to talk to youngsters about your profession?
We do that occasionally, not as much as what we've done. We kind of been bitten by the federal budget bug as well. Yeah. So some of our travel has been curtailed because of that. But we have tour groups that come to our office. In fact, I got a group coming in a couple days to talk about some of these things, about how people can prepare for bad weather and that type of thing. Some kids doing some research on that. We have what we call job shadows. There are kids that are interested in, or think they might be interested in meteorology as a profession. They come to our office. We'll talk to them about what the profession is all about, what the job entails, and then they'll sit with 3 or 4 of our forecasters, and they can ask them questions or just observe what they're doing on their job, so they can get a feel for if that's the right thing for them.
Well, that'd be a good feel, because I can tell you one thing: POTUS, for all of its machinations, can't stop the weather. We're gonna need weather.
Yeah.
That's going to come regardless. So seriously, that could be a very, very good field for us. So, but you have to have a scientific bent. You got to be oriented mentally towards something that's pretty sophisticated.
Yeah, there's a scientific bent to it. I also tell the kids that there's a lot of mathematics involved in it as well, because when you're talking about taking air from this area and moving it now to this area, how is that going to change with time? And there's a certain branch of mathematics that deals with that.
Sure.
And so there's some of that involved as well. So it's been really rewarding for us to see through the years, because now here at the weather office in Lincoln, we've almost been there 20 years now. It's
Is
been
that
about
right?
18 years we've been here, a little over.
That went fast.
It did, and we've had a number of students come through our office, and we've had some that are now working for the National Weather Service somewhere in the country. There were a couple of gals recently that were volunteers for us that are now working for television stations in the Midwest after they received their degree in meteorology, went to college. So it's really rewarding to see the young kids come in with their questions and then turn it into a career.
May
Now I have to
add-
think about it. Go ahead, honey. Go right ahead, please.
May I ask you to back up a minute? You've explained lightning very well, but what about thunder? I used to think it was the clouds bumping into one another when I was a kid, but I don't think that's right.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of it's actually kind of close to that, because the way I described lightning with the snowflakes, ice crystals, hailstones, raindrops bumping into each other, causing the friction that causes the lightning. The lightning happens first, then the thunder. The thunder is because of the lightning. I had mentioned that little 1-inch channel of lightning that we see that looks bigger heats up really, tens of thousands of degrees. What happens is that air rushes out, and then when that channel is no longer there, and this all happens just in a split second, it rushes back in. It's like clapping your hands together, and that's what causes the thunder. It's that temperature difference in that little channel of air. Now, if that lightning bolt were to hit something, like a building or a tree or something, just hitting the ground, when it hits something, that also can make a sound like an explosion type sound. So that's the thunder part of it, is the heat from the lightning.
Now,
How about that?
pretty basic explanation of that. I have to speak for my fellow golfers. So far, you've managed to ruin a heck of a lot of good days.
Oh, I know.
How are you going to make amends for that, of course, in the future, Mr. Miller? You're in charge of this department.
Oh, I'll tell you. I was just looking at some of the numbers before I came in here today, and compared to last year, well, there really is no comparison, because so far this year in Lincoln, we've had 24 inches of precipitation. 24 inches. Other areas have had more. I know down southern parts of Logan County, there are some folks down there that maybe in 25, close to 30 inches of rain, compared to last year when we were hanging around 8 or 9 inches.
Think of that.
So almost 3 times as much as we had at this point last year, and the year's almost half over. So we're way, way, way ahead of last year, as anybody could tell you. But yeah, as far as our outlook is concerned, if you've got plans to do some golfing, I like golfing myself, so there really hasn't been much of a chance to get out and do much of anything outdoors, whether it's gardening or golfing or picnicking or whatever you want to do, spending time on the lake or whatever. We saw a break in the weather pattern earlier this month as far as getting away from the all the rain that we were getting. In fact, for the month of June, we're actually a little bit behind on rainfall, just a little bit. So it's almost normal. But as we get through the, July into August, towards September, we're looking for, similar to what we've seen this June. On and off rain every few days, which is actually typical for our summer in central Illinois. One thing I can say is it does not look like it's going to be anywhere near as hot as what it was last summer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I'll take your welcome for that.
Right,
and I don't like the heat myself. But
well, I think we like you after all.
Well, he's a Wisconsinite,
Yes.
He's a northern boy.
Seriously, there's all of this moisture coming at sometimes very inopportune times, has a serious economic effect on our farm friends in the communities, because we get the planting done, and then the first thing you know, there are a lot of fields that have ponds, and some not very big and some pretty big, and it gets drowned out. They have to replant. There's a lot of planning that has to be rearranged and done as a result of some surprise weather.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I know quite a few people that are farming in the communities around here, and they're really sweating it back in May, late April, May. Are we going to get the crop in? Can we get the crop in? We got to get it in by toward the end of May, first part of June. If we don't get it in by the first week of June with the corn, then there's insurance issues and that type of thing. And we were lucky; we were able finally to get a little dry stretch toward the end of May and the first part of June, when we finally got the corn in, and then it was like corn to beans right away. In fact, some told me, I've been farming for I don't know how many years. I never went from planting corn to immediately putting beans the same week. They don't remember doing that. The corn, I think once the corn got in with the rain we're getting, so far I think in most areas, unless there's a real low spot in that field, I think that it's going to turn out pretty good. And some of the hybrids they're using now too should really help. But I think where the problems are going to come in is we've got to get into a much drier pattern as we get into the fall. Otherwise, that harvest time is going to be really tough. And we don't want folks having to spend a lot of money on drying and things like that. If we can get it naturally dried out, then that would help. But with all the moisture around, once we get in a wet pattern like this, it's hard to break.
How about just for today, since we're running out of time here, what if some of the people want to go play golf this afternoon? That's pretty immediate. Is it dicey?
It's a little dicey for today once again. And even tomorrow we're going to have a few scattered storms around, but especially today, some of those storms could be kind of strong again. We're just in this type of pattern where we're going to get some wind, some hail, some heavy rain. Always have to be careful, especially when you're talking about golfing. Got to be careful with the lightning. Extremely, don't ever keep golfing or doing anything outdoors when there's still lightning around. Got to wait till that passes.
And don't stand under a tree either.
Definitely not. No, standing under a tree is one of the worst things you can do. So we've already had 2 fatalities in Illinois this year from lightning. One, a young man on Memorial Day weekend was fishing down in the Shelbyville area, and he was struck by lightning. And then a real sad story of a high school girl about 2-3 days before her graduation. She was a senior, and she was in a park with her friends, and lightning hit and killed her. So when you're in open areas, whether it's golfing, recreating, just relaxing, you hear that thunder, see that lightning striking the ground, get inside as soon as you can.
Yeah, it's an equal opportunity charger. There's no question about that.
That's for sure.
Excuse bad pun on that.
But anybody with plans today especially, be very careful. Keep an eye out to the sky. Listen for warnings that might be issued. It could be kind of dicey today.
I'm hearing you say, Chris, that we won't have quite the heat balance of like July and August that we experienced last year.
Yes.
Well, boy, your listeners are going to be great. You might be carried onto chairs around the courthouse square.
Well, I hope so. Yeah. Last year we had those 100-degree days, the first part of July. I think when this count finally came in, it was over a dozen 100-degree days, when most years we might see one, if any. We're not going to see that this year.
Oh, thank you.
But what we are seeing, though, is if you don't like humidity, that's unfortunately Central Illinois is not the...
We got it. That's the way it is.
We have it, and we have to deal with it. So, but because of all the rain, it's going to be pretty humid this summer. but at least not the extreme heat.
Well, thank
Chris
goodness
Miller, we
for that.
appreciate once again your decision to spend some time with us. Judy and I always enjoy that, and I know Jim does too. Those folks out there, the Etherland, are still worried about whether the IRS is going to report them if they make any calls. Our closing comment is somewhat facetious, maybe all facetious. The weatherman is a man you can never depend upon to be always wrong. Thank you, Chris Miller, for your point.
Oh, my pleasure.